Hello and welcome back, my fellow ninja crafters. This is your host TNC Cuban, and in today's video we're going to be talking about iron farms because we are on Minecraft Bedrock Works, where we talk about bugs, farms, tutorials, and other game testing mechanics. And I'll tell you guys what, I have spent days, like literal days, trying to get these iron farms kind of, well, ironed out. Yeah, that's kind of punny. But yeah, I was spending time trying to get these iron farms ironed out so this way I can try and get everything down as like what the title says, to fit all in one chunk. Yes, we've got one chunk iron farms back on the Bedrock Edition. Now I know that these are not as small as the ones on Java because we don't quite have the gossip or the scare tactics. Yeah, with the scare tactics, we don't quite have the scare tactics like Java does, but we do have just kind of, you know, villagers. They gotta work, they gotta sleep, they gotta do all kinds of stuff, and so on and so forth. And after spending many different days in different types of like farming styles for these iron golems, I tell you guys what, I've got some pretty good information on what I've found out thus far. And the first thing that I want to tell you guys and let you know is that these iron farms are very touchy and very finicky on how you build them, because if you don't build them right, they will not work, and if they do not work, you've basically kind of ruined that entire ticking area for you to have an iron farm in, because then once it gets set into the game code, or at least that's how it is currently in the 1.16.0.59, once you basically, like I said, get a village established in an area and the game kind of registers that village, and then you break the farm, and then you try to fix it or rebuild it, it will not work. And the reason why I've kind of come to that conclusion is basically every time that I've tried to build a golem farm and try to stack them to try to double up the drops, not that the drop rates are super terrible, because I tell you guys what, this is the best amount of drop rates I've seen on Bedrock Edition in quite some time, especially from only a single chunk iron farm. But again, like I was saying, every time I try to double up on the farms and then things don't work, and then I've got to try to rebuild it, yeah, pretty much no iron golems whatsoever. So when I say these things are very touchy and very finicky, yeah, you might want to follow the step by step, because otherwise, like I said, you're gonna have to rebuild your iron farm in a completely different location. Now, I've done quite a bit of research and I've looked up quite a bit of different information online, basically on YouTube. So a lot of the information that I've gained, I guess, has kind of come half from YouTube and the other half from my testing experience. Now, granted, I've only done like 3 days of testing, and I mean, I know it's not a whole lot, but I mean, I've spent pretty much 3 days straight of testing. And the reason why I've spent so much time testing is because when it comes to iron farms, in order to get a true test on how much like you're getting per hour instead of just testing for 5 minutes and multiplying it, which I have done on like many of other farms, but for iron farms, not quite the same, because when a mob spawns, right, it spawns in a particular pattern or in a particular way. And when iron golems spawn the way they spawn only maybe 2 iron golems at a time. And depending on the weather, the time of the day, and so on and so forth, all of those can actually affect the way the iron farms work. Which I just realized while recording, my villagers, they disappeared. Oh my goodness, affected by a Nether bug that's in the beta. Definitely check it out. Link for that bug is going to be down in the description below if you guys don't want to see your mobs just randomly despawn on you. Yeah, or disappear, whichever one it is. I'm not sure exactly what the issue is, but every once in a while, just to kind of maybe touch bases on the bug a little bit, yeah, you'll have mobs somewhere. If you unload the area, as you guys saw, I kind of flew around. But if you unload the area and then you load it back up, sometimes, not always, but every once in a while, they will despawn. And just to show you guys that this is a one chunk farm, and that it is all chunk aligned, I'm going to go ahead and throw on the texture pack for it. Yeah, so as you guys can see, basically the chunk border is like right here, so the edge, I mean, we really don't need corners, but we do need these parts of the walls so that way it can actually hold the water in and keep it all inside of one chunk. And to let you know, to show you that it is chunk aligned with sub chunks, you can see the top of the sub chunk is right here where the redstone and where the hopper is. So the entire like farm being this block and all the way down, yeah, everything's chunk aligned. So like I said, you guys, you want to be very careful with these things because once they break, like this one has just broken, yeah, I'm not going to be able to rebuild this and have it work. Anyways, like I was saying before I got distracted by the bug and my villagers disappearing, is yes, these farms, they're very, very particular. And because they are very particular is the reasons why I have done straight true 1 hour test, which basically means I've done a test and I've let the game run for an exactly 1 hour, then stopped, and then let it run again for another hour. So basically every time I've done one of these iron farm tests to check the rates and to make sure everything's working grand, I've done at least 2 hours. And since our farm over here kind of broke, it's our ample opportunity to say, let's go ahead and start on the tutorial build of this farm. Because first things first is you're going to want to have a good location. Location is key. First of all, you don't want to set this up in a actual already established village. Like I said, because of all the other tests that I've done, if the game already registers a village as it being there, then you can't really change that village from what it is, because if you try to, it will not work. Then you'll have to find a new location. So I'm kind of just gonna plop maybe right here. I think this might be a good spot. Yes, I know, we kind of just jumped into a super flat world, and the reason being is just so that way I can provide you guys with the world download in case you guys want to look at this on your own device. So once you guys find your ideal location, you're going to want to make sure you can map out your chunks. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually go 1 block outside of the chunk that we're actually going to be building in, because this is going to be the wall that we're going to use, so that way we can try and control the flow of the water. Get out of here, slime. And once you get your chunk kind of lined up with a 2 high block wall all the way around it, we can now go ahead and turn off our chunk visualizer. Then what you'll want to do is in each corner of your wall, you're going to want to place 3 blocks just like this. Now, the reason for this block placement is it's not for necessarily permanent use. It's just to kind of help guide us on where we're going to be placing our water. So once we get those placed in all 4 corners, we're going to go ahead and grab our water bucket. And we're going to take our water buckets and we're going to go ahead and actually place water all along the inside of this, which of course will be along all 4 sides of the wall. And like I said, you don't want to necessarily place the water on top of your temporary blocks. They just need to be placed against the walls right here. And you don't want to place water right there either, because you can now see how the water flows all in the center. However, we do have some water that is flowing backwards right here, which is then when we place our water right here on all 4 corners. And once you get that in, you can then break these temporary blocks if you so choose to. You don't need to. You can leave it if you so decide to. It doesn't really matter. Me, I just personally like to remove them. So once you get that done, we're going to come right over here to the center of our water flowage, and we're actually going to be placing some more temporary blocks right around this 2x2 center, because we're actually going to be using these temporary blocks to help place down some fence gates. Unless, of course, you're going to be playing with fire tick on, then you'll probably want to use oak signs instead. So we're going to go ahead, and if we use oak signs, you'll probably want to make the center like killing blocks, like the magma blocks, should I say, maybe a little bit wider. So we'll have to go like right here and right there. Essentially 1 block out on all edges, so that way you can get the lava to flow in the manner that you want. So we're going to put our signs down right here, and we'll put it in a manner so this way the bottom where the magma blocks are, those will not have any lava on top of it. Basically our lava will be on top of those center signs. So I'm gonna finish this up real quick. Then we'll grab our lava bucket, and looking at the sign, we'll just have to place down the 1 bucket. Now this should flow over just like it is doing now. Of course it's going to burn these blocks because we have fire tick on. like I said, which is the reason why I said if you're going to be playing with fire tick on, it's probably better to just expand your blocks right here, your magma blocks, so that way whatever mob kind of shows up, they will burn from the magma blocks and also from the lava. The next thing that you'll do is you'll grab your temporary blocks, and from this corner we're going to go up 1, 2, and then 3, and then we're going to actually bring this across the entire like lava containment like area. And we're going to fill all this in until we have a 4x4 square. Once we get the 4x4 square, we're going to grab some glass. Now the glass does not have to be stained glass like I am using. I'm just using stained glass to show some differences between the two, and you can actually use solid blocks right here instead of like clear blocks, like glass blocks like I'm using. But the reason for the glass is just so that way we can see actually inside the farm, because, well, I mean, we want to know what's going on the inside, because we want to make sure that mobs on the inside or the villagers that end up on the inside don't have any angry particles. So after you do that, we actually want to place a border also on the outside of our farm too, right here where our outside line edge of our chunk is, because we don't want any mobs, aka iron golems, to spawn right here on the wall. Now I've seen people use half slabs in the past. However, when using half slabs in the update of Minecraft 1.16, I've noticed that the golems will spawn actually right on top of the half slabs, especially when building them in a one chunk area. So now that we've got our temporary blocks placed right here, it's now time to bring our villagers in. However, before you do that, I would highly suggest getting yourself a railway set up so that way you can bring your villagers into the center of your iron farm. A little bit easier because these farms are very particular, and you're going to have to bring in one villager at a time. And also on top of that, like I said, you're going to want to make sure that your villagers are going to be more than 100 blocks away from where your iron farm is. So this way you don't possibly chance messing it up and having to rebuild your iron farm in a nether location. So, like I said, make sure you're like a very good distance away from where your iron farm is going to be. You set up your railway system all the way to your iron farm, and you'll be able to bring your villagers all the way in like so. The next thing I would say to do is actually build your wall up a couple of blocks high, just so that way you can make sure villagers don't try to escape anywhere. And the other thing that you could do to make sure villagers don't escape anywhere, and I would recommend doing, is actually starting this at night. Because what you'll be able to do is you'll get the villagers to link and attach to their beds and workstations like kind of right off the back, and that's what we're going to want to do. So we'll place a bed just like that, then we'll place our workstation just like that, which I would recommend using a fletching table, because the fletching table does not affect the villagers' work ethics, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. Because on Old Guy's video, link will be in the upper right hand corner, he's stated and found out that in the villager coding for Bedrock, that some of the workstations, the majority of the workstations, should I say, for the exception of the fletching table, say that the villager cannot work at its workstation when it is raining. So yeah, with that being said, the next best thing to do with that is to not yet just use fletching tables, but if you want to use something other than that, build your iron farm in a desert. So once we've got our bed and our workstation, and then we bring our villagers straight over to our iron farm area, we can see that our villager will link with his bed and then with his workstation, which is exactly what we want. Now, you also want to make sure that you place the bed in the same direction as I am placing them here, where the foot of the bed is facing the villager's workstation. So this way, when you bring in your next one, they'll be able to link up with the bed right away with the workstation, and there shouldn't be any issues. And then, of course, we'll keep repeating this process where we bring in one villager at a time, so this way we can ensure that our villager links with the proper bed and workstation. Because if they desync or delink and they start attaching to different beds and different workstations, there is going to be a problem with the way the iron farm works, and it could potentially break your iron farm and no longer spawn any. So once we get this done and we get all 8 villagers in here, then we can move to the next step, which is going to help keep the villagers basically standing just like they are now. Now, once you guys get to this point, you may start to see cats spawning and dying, but that is actually a good sign, and that means that this is now an established village. So we can go ahead and break this block in our kind of way up, because I would leave the whole system, but I would say we can break this, so this way we can make sure we can lock our villagers in. Now, once we get that set up, and yeah, okay, that plays 2 blocks. Now, once we got this set up, what we'll want to do is we're going to want to wait until our villagers actually go to bed, because once they go to bed, we can then start setting up our locking mechanism to make sure that the villagers are not going to be able to go to a nether workstation or a nether bed. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and right above where their head's at, we're going to place this glass right here on both villagers, or on all 8 villagers, just right above their head. On the other side, in between the workstation and the glass, you're going to want to make sure that this is a clear air block, because this is actually where the villager will stand, and these blocks are just in a sense to be here to make sure that the villager doesn't try to move anywhere else. So we'll put those blocks right there on top of those, then we'll put another piece of glass right here, keeping that air block above their feet. Then we'll continue with placing our yellow glass all the way around, and like I said, I just use this for kind of, you know, to see through and see what's going on with the villagers. You don't have to use glass, you can use solid blocks. I would recommend glass, at least around the workstations though, so this way you can ensure that the villagers are gonna see it. So once we've got our glass put in, we can actually start working on the next set of villagers. And of course, if it's already night and they're already going to bed, because we have the sun set at sunset, we can go ahead and start placing in the next 8 villagers, which is going to be the exact same process as what we did before. We're going to want the bed, we're going to want the workstation, and then 1 villager at a time. Keep in mind, with this farm, they are very touchy. If you do not bring in 1 villager at a time and they do not sync properly to the bed and the workstation that you provide, the farm will break. So let me go ahead and place in the rest of these beds and we'll get to the next step. And on the top, just like we've done on the bottom, we're going to place the glass right over their heads so we can make sure we encase our villagers to right where we want them. And again, we'll put the glass right here, so that way they can not move into any other villagers like working area. And so yeah, just fill all this in. You want it to be solid. You want to keep the corners, because I have seen villagers wake up and spawn and come, not spawn, but wake up and glitch through the corner and end up standing like right here on the edge. So make sure that this is a full and solid square, because if not, like I said, you will have some issues. So right here, we've actually got a total of 8 and 8, which is 16. And now we need our last 4 villagers, which we're going to place basically right here, right on top, in the same manner as we have done already. 1 villager at a time, we're going to place the bed, then the workstation, and then we'll bring our villager in so that way we can make sure he links up properly with the bed. And again, we want to make sure the foot of the bed is towards the workstation, and then bring our villager in so this way he can be on his bed and his workstation. Now, little Mr. Baby Villager has brought me to the next point of this farm and how delicate it can be. Baby villagers will ruin your farm. So will the nitwick. So if you don't kill these villagers off, what's going to happen is it's going to cause problems and your farm's going to break, and then you're going to have to start this whole entire process all over. And I can imagine, like, being in survival, it's going to take quite some time to do. Come here, little guy. Just no. So again, like I said, no baby villagers and no nitwits, because they will break the iron farm. Because if they get angry particles, iron golems will no longer spawn. So once we get all these villagers in and we get all the beds set up and we get all the glass made, no nitwit, we can go ahead and encase our villagers once again. Now, you don't have to worry about it being a perfect square all the way up. You just want to make sure that you get the corners of where the villagers are kind of encased, so that way they don't glitch through blocks. And then of course, for the very top, we're going to do the same thing as we've done for the 2 bottom layers, is we're going to want their heads covered up with 2 blocks like this, and then 2 blocks over here like that. So this is where they'll stand. And then of course, like I said, we want to make sure this is a full solid square. Well, in this case, it's a rectangle. And that is pretty much it for the build of the iron farm. Now, the next thing is you're not going to probably see any iron golems spawn until you have them wake up and see the light of day. That is sunset, not sunrise. So let's go time set day. And then they have to work at their workstations. As soon as they work with their workstations, as you guys just seen, iron golems will spawn. Oh, I almost forgot. We've got to take out these temporary blocks. The whole point of these blocks was just so that way we can set the beds on top of them. And then once we do that, we need to break them out. So this way the iron golems will spawn. They will take damage from the magma blocks and from the lava at the same time, collecting double damage, and then we can get the iron a lot faster. Now what we can do, and wow, you guys can really see the rates kind of going on this one. Now what you'll want to do, because we are using magma blocks, is you're going to want to come down over here by the side of the farm. You're going to want to dig down a few blocks so that way you can get underneath everything, and we're going to make our way all the way to the magma, where once we get down here, we're just going to go ahead and set down some blocks right here, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up a minecart collection system. That's going to be the best way to do this, because you want to kill the golems as fast as possible so more can actually spawn in. And if you guys like, you can go ahead and set up a minecart hopper system just like I have done here. Now it's just going to keep going back and forth because I have it constantly on. We don't have to worry about the minecart hopper minecart ever despawning, because everything is chunk aligned. So what we could do is we could leave that here. We have these hoppers basically facing inwards to go into this chest, so whatever iron our hopper minecart collects, it's going to go straight into our chest here, which, as you guys can see, it's already been picking it up and it's already been dropping it off every time it goes by one of these hoppers. Now there probably is some extra iron in there that is not going into the hoppers just yet, and that's because it's got so much coming in from the iron golems that's been spawning up there as I built this up. But eventually at some point those hoppers will empty out this hopper minecart very easily, because it's not going to be so much rates that you won't be able to get all the iron collected, but you'll be fine. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for today's video, and that is the one chunk iron farm built and ready to go. So if you guys like this video, make sure you guys go and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. Then if you really like the video, make sure you go down to the thumbs up and karate chop that like button. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're gonna leave the video, and I will go to say thank you, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.